Yeah.
Back at it.
Back at it.
What's up, boy?
What's going on, y'all?
We're back at it like a good habit.
Yes, we are.
Like Roger Rabbit.
Get ready for 2023, guys. So much is going on. Hope you are ready for the new year coming in. Bigger, better than before. Let's go. What we got up next?
So, there's this video that Joe has out here called Americans Were in America. Joe Rogan clips. Americans were in Americas before Columbus. What did I say? Africans were in the Americas before Columbus. Hoptep Jesus. So let's go.
Okay. Hoptep.
Hop Jesus.
Hoptep.
Hopped Jesus.
What's up?
Is that what it is? Hoptis. What's Hoptis?
Let's see.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
It's a conversation that I think is a fascinating one, the conversation of reparations, because there can be no doubt that something horrible happened to the black community and they're still suffering from it, especially in the Deep South when you look at these places where the people who lived are the direct descendants of slaves.
Yeah.
And then these are the same impoverished neighborhoods that no one's ever done anything to try to fix.
Right.
So how do you fix it?
You first have to start with the subconscious mind of the black mind. The problem with the black mind is the fact that the black mind starts off with a defeatist mentality. From the day you're born, you're taught the white man's out to get you. So you start off with a boogeyman, and then you're taught that you're a slave, right? So when your subconscious mind believes that the beginnings of your race is a slave, how do you aspire to be more than that? So in order to correct the black community, you have to teach black history, or so-called black history, or what I would say African history, in chronological order. Before we were slaves, we were kings. So how do you have a whole entire nation of 40 some odd million black people, and majority of them never heard of Queen Angola, who never heard of the Songhai Empire, the Mali Empire, none of this stuff, right?
That's right.
King Mansa Musa. How do you raise the people's level of awareness about this stuff, and how do you elevate them to want to do things in life when they think they are a slave? That's the first thing that you have to do to help black people. You have to teach them who they are.
That expression, before they were slaves, they were kings. The problem with that is a king is a monarch, and a monarch is one person who controls giant groups of people. You can't have a bunch of kings. There's not a lot of kings. You can't have a nation of kings.
Correct. But that's very different from saying, that we had 4 kings, right? Let's say there were just 4, right? That's better than saying Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and these free slaves, right?
He right.
Yeah.
Because that still falls under the line of slave.
Yeah.
And he absolutely right. There were different kingdoms. Different races had kingdoms. The European culture had their kingdoms. Africa had their kingdom. Asia had their kingdoms. Asia Minor, their kingdoms. These different kingdoms exist, but everybody else's nationality has their kingdom, but blacks are looked at like we had nothing but slavery.
Right.
And that's why we still continue on to the slavery tradition that still goes on, because there's still no root of power that you're looking at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's still the truth. That's still a fact.
You actually have to see at least one king.
I see what you're saying.
At least say.
So see one advanced human being that also looks like you, that came from the same part of the world where your ancestors came from. So recognize that the trajectory that you and your family are on is a direct result of being enslaved. That someone was enslaved in the past and brought over here against their will. That's why there's the negative mindset. That's why there's a negative self-image, is because there's this great history of oppression.
Yeah. When you think you're a slave, you can't operate outside of that.
And even if you don't think you're a slave, you think you're inferior. You know, I had, you know who Miss Pat is?
No.
Hilarious comedian.
Yeah,
one of the
Miss
funniest
Pat.
human beings alive.
Miss
And she
Pat
was
cursing.
here,
That's a
and
cursing
one of the things she
woman
was
there.
talking about was when she was younger, that when she would see white people, she wouldn't look them in the eye. She would get nervous. She felt inferior being around them. She just wanted to get away. She didn't feel like she belonged.
Right. And that's a product of not knowing who you are, not knowing your own personal power. You know, when you look at the Second Punic Wars of Carthage, you had Hannibal went through the Alps, which is Mission Impossible, and he went all the way to the doors of Rome, and Rome said, "Yo, we ain't coming outside to fight you, bro. We ain't coming." That's how strong the power for the army was. They said, "We don't want to fight." They knew if they came outside those gates, they would get their ass whooped. So how do you have a people that walk around not knowing that Hannibal Barca is a well studied war general? Today, the Pentagon still studies him, right? So how are you operating in America as a black person and not know who Hannibal Barca is?
Well, it's difficult, I think, for people that were born in America.
I like how he has the pause eyes. He be like, how you know that?
No, I mean, but I really like his perspective and everything that he's saying. I really like his perspective and the way he's coming.
Yeah.
This is great.
All their known ancestors from America to even relate. Like my family is mostly from Italy and Sicily, and some of them from Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
I don't relate at all.
Right.
I visit Italy in the summer times. I don't relate at all.
Right. So then the other psyop is the fact that we were the natives. We were not brought here on slave ships. That's not economically sound. This
what do you mean?
Make sense. So when Christopher Columbus got here, Christopher Columbus got to the Caribbean, according to a primary source.
Right.
They basically said the first thing he did was take slaves. He didn't bring slaves. He took slaves from the island. He captured people. So when you have colonization, you got to remember, the United States was only built 13 colonies at first, right? You think this whole land was empty? No, there were natives here.
Right.
But today we're taught that natives is some other people. No, natives are the melanated African being that has come here since the beginning of the Mali Empire. We're talking about 14th, 13th century. We had already come here from Africa.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we absolutely traveled here because, you had a lot of, and remember, you had to have money to be able to travel like that. And there were a lot of people that wealth at that times had in these countries that were powerful enough to be able to travel across and settle over here. There were blacks over here.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't hear him say how in the Caribbean he's saying Columbus just went and just captured. What about, no, in the Caribbean also, they were handed over there too. Mm. They captured, I believe they did capture, if I'm not mistaken, but they were handed over from the kings over there also.
Yeah.
Or the power that be
mm-hmm.
of the head, the leadership. Because I don't know if it was, I don't know, I have to do my study. It's completely on the kingship and over there.
Already come here
to the United States or to
this landmass we call the United States. So the way the ocean current works is it works from Africa, leaves out of West Africa, comes to South America and the Caribbean. That's just how the currents go. You don't need no paddle boat or nothing. It'll just, the currents will just take you there, and then you travel up. But we had already been here. All you got to do is look up the story of Sarah Rector. Sarah Rector is a wealthy so-called Native American. I think she was a Choctaw tribe or one of these tribes, but she was wealthy, and she wanted a VI pass to go somewhere, and they had her classified as a free person. Why don't we know about the wealthy so-called black people in America? Why don't we know that there were black slave owners in America? Why is that not taught? Why is it not taught?
How many black slave owners were there?
Man, the natives here had slaves. They were trading.
There we go. He is speaking, man. Oh my God.
We just saw that.
But he's saying right here in America.
Yeah.
He's saying back then,
mm-hmm.
before slaves were brought over, blacks were over here with slaves already. And see, oh my God, it's just, man, I wish I could just start punching everybody who still think the old thought. Dude, this was a natural thing. Start running and being fearful of the white man, bro. You have to. Stop.
Slaves with the so-called white man.
Well, they definitely did that. Natives enslaved people of other tribes.
Right. So if those people are us, the so-called black man, if those natives were us, then we have to tell that history and say how we did have territories and we did, carry out commerce, and we weren't slaves. We were slave owners.
Right, but the majority of African Americans that lived here were brought over here.
No,
No.
that's not economically sound.
What do you mean by it's not economically sound? Like there were slave ships, right?
All right, let's say you wanted to have you wanted to sell marijuana, right?
Right.
Would you import marijuana or would you grow it here if it's already here?
Well, it depends on whether or not marijuana grew here.
Well, can you grow marijuana here?
You can, but
Okay.
we're just talking about marijuana. Like, what if
So-
we're talking
so-
about something that you can't grow here?
So what I'm saying is, people were already here. Does it make sense to go all the way to this other continent to bring people on the boat when we know that half of your stock is going to die? You wouldn't do that.
So how many people do you think were brought over from Africa on slave ships? Because that definitely happened.
I don't believe it.
What do you mean you don't believe it?
I don't believe that story.
You don't believe that Africans were brought over on slave ships?
Correct. I believe it may have happened, maybe people were brought over as slaves, but I don't think that the black people in America came from Africa on slave ships. I believe
I see. I heard one time. I heard that before in the past.
Let me finish
but
hearing his thought out. I want to hear what you got to say. Yeah, let him finish.
people that were here were slowly conquered. First, they got the East Coast, and then they started spreading out west little by little, conquering. And when you conquer a tribe, what do? You enslave them. They're POWs,
Yep.
right?
Prisoners of
Okay.
war.
That's what you do.
See, I've never heard this.
I heard that before, but now I'm hearing. Now I put the context of how things were as we start going down this educational journey, and that makes sense because I don't remember hearing about. Used to hear about the Mayflower and the ones, Columbus bringing over slaves and the slave ships that came over, but you don't hear about endless slave. It's a lot of black people here. So, but you don't hear about endless slave ships that brought everybody over. No, he's saying that there were some, but it wasn't the majority. And
So he's saying that we were already here.
we were here,
meaning
with the
that
Indians, with the
some
Native
of the
Americans.
wealthy Africans in Africa had already found about North America,
Yeah.
and they had already come here.
And they probably were coming back and forth.
Mhm.
People were probably catching rides over.
Yeah.
It's no telling. It was a whole system, a whole world
Mhm.
before the whole concept of the
British
white
and-
man conquered
yeah,
us and
Europeans.
colonized and
Right.
yeah.
So after you conquer this tribe, you make them slaves. Now, how do you conquer the natives here? So let's say you got this tribe is warring against this tribe. Well, this tribe goes talk to the white man. White man says, yo, if you help me wipe out these people, then boom, I'll help you with whatever. So they get together and they wipe out this other tribe. Now, guess what? The white man now outnumbers this tribe. So he wipes them out. You just kill two birds with one stone. You just keep moving like that.
But I'm still confused. There's a great history of slave ships being brought over from Africa with Africans that became slaves and worked in the South. Do you think that's lies?
History is his story.
Right.
What about my story? Is my story not valid?
But if you do 23andMe on someone who is from these parts of the country, you'll find out that
23andMe?
Well, that's real.
So
what
if-
is 23andMe? Is
So
that-
when I take a 23andMe test, right?
Yes.
What's it going to tell me about Africa?
that's a good question. We should find
It's
out.
probably
We
going to
should
say,
take one.
"Oh, you're from Kenya, or you're from Angola, you're from
Yeah.
this, right?"
Right.
These things, these borders, were created by Europe.
In terms, yes,
Right.
In terms of like what parts of Africa and how it's distributed, and what's a country and what's not a country.
Yeah,
right.
these
by
names.
the Afrikaners and Dutch. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can't classify me based upon a European name.
I understand that, but they're saying geographically, geographic location, you can call it whatever name you want.
Right.
They can tell you where your genetics originated. Like,
Right.
I've got some weird shit in me. I got like 1% Asian. I don't know why it's there. 1.6% African.
Okay.
There's also weird stuff that you find in your DNA that like your ancestors and ancestors' ancestors,
Right. So
someone
let's
was
walk down
somewhere.
that. Let's walk down that
Right.
path, right? So either way, if you take black people here in America and you do their DNA sample and it point back to Africa, what does that say? It says black people in America are Africans. Now, the argument is, were we brought here or were we already here? Did we bring ourselves here or did the white man bring us here? You see, when you say the white man brought us here, what you're doing is you're removing our ability to transport ourselves. You're saying, oh, we didn't know anything about boats.
Self-sufficient. Right. To
See,
be
and that's it.
self-sufficient. Yeah. To be self-sufficient. I get what he's saying.
All black people weren't poor and couldn't travel. You had a lot of wealth. People could travel. People could move around. People could bring people on boats. People in Africa bring their own slaves to America.
Yeah. As we saw on The Woman King.
Yeah.